There is a proposal that was put forth by the GPAC to set aside some land, Mauka, here, this red line here, which would be a long-term project, a transit corridor, but that's something that's really being set aside for 20, 30 years from now, that perhaps as South Maui grows, it eventually would be a route that could be used for high-speed transit even, or bicycles, or some other modes of transit, but certainly bus service along that route. But there's no way that that's going to be done. What we're trying to do is set aside the land for that thing right now so it doesn't get built on, so we don't run into the problems that Honolulu has trying to set up a transit corridor.
Have the concept. You know, as an economist, is there sort of like a number of units a year that you think Kihei might be able to deal with, but if it went over that, you know, people are just going to see their quality of life plummet? Have you given that any thought, the number side of that?
I have no single number. It depends where they are. Certain types of housing units, for example, small condominiums with 2 people in it are real different than single-family homes with 3, 4, 5 people in them.
And multiple cars.
Family which will use a lot more water and you know, have more impact and more cars. So it really depends on what units we're talking about. Tourists use it differently. Than tourists' impact won't be on schools, but it will be on the beaches. And as we know in South Maui,
and on the roads,
the beaches don't have adequate parking. So as those facilities get built up, what will happen for the residents who want to go down to the beach? So
it'll be the Kanapali factor.
Yeah.
Where the visitors can park, but it's really hard. The residents have to fight for a few spaces.
Now, in addition to the road, we also have issues like water, and the water supply in South Maui is not necessarily abundant.
Well, first of all, they're stealing their water from other people.
Well, that's the issue, because the water doesn't come from South Maui. It comes from Central Maui, and as we saw in the earlier graph, Central Maui is planning to have 4,000 to 5,000 more units as well. So what chance does South Maui have to get any of the water it needs for these developments?
And the other place they want to get it from is from Haiku area, and of course it looks like that's going to be supplying the Hawaiian homeland. So
exactly.
Yeah, I think they all got their hands out here.
And so that's what the county council has to say. Where will we want the development, and where will the water be? That will be one of the controlling things. A high school definitely seems to be going ahead. I have a question mark on the middle school. I think South Maui, with the development that's taken place and the housing, should be thinking already, where will the new middle school go, even before the high school gets finished? Because they will definitely need a middle school at some point.
Yeah, they will.
Medical facilities, we all know, are inadequate in South Maui.
We've heard about that.
Wastewater plant will need to be expanded, and pipelines may even have to be expanded. And we have to ask, what is the effect going to be on existing residents and community as we have all this development taking place? Just as a reminder here, this is where the surface water is. You know, it's all up here in East Maui here. We got the streams over here in West Maui here, and these are the old irrigation ditches run by the sugar company. But you don't see a lot of water down here in South Maui. And the water for South Maui will all have to come from either over here or over here. And there will be some wells dug here, but we don't have a lot of experience with this yet. We don't really know how much water there'll be.
Yeah, at least the wells that have gone in the past, the experimental wells the state has put in over the years. There's one up above Maui Meadows. None of them have really panned out, but I think they're going further up. I think they're going into your planning district.
Well, right now that's not allowed. Okay, let's take a look now at some of the areas in South Maui where there's some questions as to what should be done. The GPAC recommendation was that the urban growth boundary go here, where this red line is down here. Here's Pu'uolai, the big hill, and here's Big Beach. We recommended that this whole area not be allowed to have urban designation. The planning director thought otherwise, and as we'll see here on the next map, and the reason why we said this, why the GPAC said it, was we thought this should be a green zone here, above Big Beach and above Pu'uolai, and make the state park perhaps eventually, and archaeological sites here and restoration of Hawaiian sites here be primary in this area. The planning director did not draw the line here, but rather suggested that it go all the way down to here where the present community plan goes. And so that's one thing the council was going to have to wrestle with, how far south they want the urban growth boundary to go.
But you have a lot of green space there, past there too. So
Yes.
does everyone agree on that?
Well, some of these are state lands, which are conservation lands and whatever, and there are probably others. You know more about this than I do, that area, as to what's being planned and proposed in some of those areas.
Well, I know some of the land is where your mouse is there is mostly McKenna Resort land, and it doesn't have full entitlement. So the county was saying, you know, hey, why don't we keep McKenna kind of compact for services and everything else, and let it be very, very rural and you know, conservation rural from there all the way to Ahi'i Canal. And you know, cost-wise, that would probably make sense, but
Right, it's very expensive.
You have to convince McKenna Resort of that.
Right, exactly. You have to. There's a water situation, and then police, fire, all those things have to be serviced. The further down you go, the more expensive it will be for the county to provide those services.
Yeah, I think they're thinking
in
that way.
North Kihei, this is the map that the GPAC recommended, and we thought that the uphill, Mauka, there should be a rural community, like sort of a Makawao or a Kula type thing. Up here, a village, self-contained, maybe the size of Hana, for example, which would be uphill and then separated with a green belt from the rest of Kihei. Rather than having the sprawl continue all the way up the hill, that we have a real green belt between these two. This is the R&T Park over here, and we, on the GPAC, said that there should be about 1,000 units up here in this Mauka community. We didn't really designate any housing units in this area here, but now the R&T Park is coming along and saying, we'd like to get 1,200 units up here. That's, of course, in addition to all those entitled units.
Yeah.
Now, one issue that doesn't always get talked about, but I threw in here and I thought it should be something that the South Maui folks would want to discuss, not just South Maui, but all of Maui, is global climate change. What will happen if ocean levels keep rising? I say keep rising. That doesn't mean it's going to happen in the future. It is rising. Are parts of South Maui already being impacted? And is South Maui ready? Let me give you a couple of maps here. This is South Maui, the middle of South Maui. Here's Halama Street area here. Here's Kalama Park over here. This red indicates how the shoreline is retreating each year. The number of feet, 3, 4, 5 feet per year, that was calculated by the geologists and the oceanographers who looked at this, and they did a study that said already at Kalama Park here and along Halama Street, the coastline was already retreating over the last several decades. Then further south, in Keava Kapu here, and down into where the Grand Wailea is here, the same thing is happening. The beaches are retreating already, and what does that say? Should we be putting setbacks? Should we say no coastal development should take place within 50 feet, 100 feet, 200 feet, or a certain elevation from the coastline, knowing that over the next 20, 30, 40 years, we're going to be seeing these beach areas eroded, and it would be unfortunate for the homeowners to lose their houses and for the county to have to supply money and constantly replenish the sand.
Yeah, these are some big issues.
Very big issues. And it's one of the issues that South Maui, but all of Maui, will have to look at as the oceans cut away, as the ocean levels rise.
So we have about 8 minutes. Is there anything you want to get to?
Let's. This is the planning director's recommendation. He wanted the expansion to go Mauka. Let's see what else we want to get here. These are the additional units that might be added to the Maui Island plan, in addition to the ones already being proposed. The GPAC suggested 1,000. The Maui Planning Commission said 2,100, and the planning director previously said about 1,500 plus, because it was a little vague in terms of infill areas here. So this is our last slide, and it's a question that I want to throw out to the community of South Maui. Who will decide South Maui's future? Will you leave it to the hands of the 9 council members? Will you want to get involved in South Maui in putting together a plan for your community and proposing where you want growth to take place, where you don't want it to take place, how it should take place, and what are the issues that you want discussed in the plan? And that will be taking place primarily in September, October, November. So I think this is the time for the South Maui community to gear up and be prepared to make their statement. The same thing is true for other areas of the island, although tonight we looked really only at South Maui.
Well, the other part of that, if the 9 people on the council don't make the decision, it's likely the 5 large landowners will.
They will make.
So and they're going to be in there pitching their
each one
view of it. Yeah.
Each one of them will be in there represented. So this is our last of our slides. So maybe we can turn off the slideshow.
Yeah, and a few quick questions here. When the council hears this, I mean, what can people do to be effective? You've gone to the council for years and years and years. What can they do to effectively present? Do they have to band together and all go through the community association? Is that the best plan, or is it good for people just to come on their own and tell what they think?
How can I put it?
Yeah.
I think the South Maui community should be meeting now and should be just looking together and working with the Kihei Community Association, but not just Kihei, there's the Wailea Community Association, McKenna has its own association, Malaya, which we haven't talked about, is also part of that area. They each should be looking independently, what do they want for their separate communities, and then working together and maybe put up some maps. And
But you only have a few months, right?
you only have a few months, and so they should be preparing right now in July and August, so they can make their presentation September, October, and the rest of the year. The council is planning by the end of the year, by December, to have finalized all their plans. But the big map looking will be in September, October.
Now, you know, in your heart of hearts, do you think everything's already decided?
No, I don't think it is. I think that there's still some things in it. I think you're going to see some jockeying among the different landowners to decide which, you know, they're going to be fighting for their property, the Haleakala Ranch, A and B, Honolulu Ranch. Each of them are going to be trying to get the development in their property to enhance the value of their corporations. And then the question is, what does the community think? What do all the residents think of there? And it'll be, hopefully, a real good, lively debate, taking a look at those issues and figuring out what do we want to do.
And if people feel strongly about this and, you know, get involved and so forth and so on, then once these decisions are made, is there another level that happens when the Kihei McKenna Community Plan comes up? And that'll be a few more years, right?
What will happen, this will set the framework for the South Maui Plan. Then, probably in about 2 or 3 years, the council will appoint citizens to do the recommendations and have a whole South Maui actual detailed plan where they're going to indicate exactly within those urban growth boundaries where industrial, commercial, single-family, hotel will actually all take place, on which parcels of land.
So an everyday citizen could volunteer to be on that,
And
just like people volunteered to be on the GPAC.
I think you were once a member of one of the Citizen Advisory Committee?
No, I wasn't.
Oh, you were
I was a planning commissioner on the mainland.
Okay, and I was a member, and yes, citizen. And what will happen is, I think 9 members will be appointed by the council, 4 by the mayor. So it'll be a 13-member Citizen Advisory Committee that will help draft the South Maui Plan and the ones for each of the other areas.
So that's another opportunity for people, and you don't have to have any special planning background or anything to serve on one of these
In fact,
things.
they'd probably rather not.
Just have some common sense and hopefully a desire to talk to some of your neighbors and find out what they want.
And a willingness to really work, because it's not just get together a couple of evenings and having a cup of coffee together. You're going to sit down with maps, you're going to draw, you're going to argue, you're going to debate. The last planning commission last advisory committee for South Maui was very split, and the votes were very close together. One side won over the other side, and so it became down to the counting votes.
And they had a minority report, I remember. It's like 5 of the 13 people or so published their own report of what they thought, you know, the decision should have been.
In the end, it's the council that will decide the final thing. But the Citizen Advisory Group is a powerful body that can lobby for their community.
So should people be speaking to their council person if they live in South Maui?
Yes. We don't know yet when the South Maui group will be. The West Maui one will probably be appointed in the next year.
No, I mean for the Maui Island plan, for the
Maui
plan
Island,
that
yes,
the council's considering
definitely.
now.
Don Couch is your representative from South Maui, but all of the council members have an equal vote. So if you know some of the council members and you say, I would like more development, or I'd like less development, or I like it here or there, push the urban growth boundary out, keep it restricted, this is the time to do it.
Yeah, so go call your old classmates.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Well, I'm really glad that you took the trouble to get all these great maps together, kind of lay it on the board. It sounds like if people don't get involved, they could end up with something that goes halfway to Kula.
Yep.
Yeah. So maybe we better give this a little bit more thought.
Yeah. Maybe they want a green belt between separating Kula and South Maui.
We know the funny thing, in the old maps, of course, Kihei is called Kula. It's just Kula Kikai, you know, it's the ocean part of Kula.
Yes.
And the two were always seen as connected.
Well, on the island, one of the things we try to keep in mind was that we talk Mauka Makai, the way the Hawaiians did. The streams that come from Kula are the ones that come down to Kihei, for better or for worse. They bring water, but sometimes they bring too much.
Well, thank you for joining us tonight, and you've really helped inform people and folks. Go out and get involved. Even if you can't remember everything you saw, we'll run this again, and we'll try to make it so it can play on demand too. So if people want to see the whole picture, the idea is not to get scared. The idea is to get informed and to make some good decisions about our future and get involved. Exactly. So thank you, Dick. You've been a good continuing educational force in our community here.
Thank you, Lucienne. Thank you very much. And hope the audience does get involved, because this is your community.